Welcome to my new special, the Summer Blockbuster series. This summer, I'm going behind the scenes of some of the biggest summer blockbuster movies. If you're new here, welcome. Each week, I create new look using Color Street nail strips, and this summer, join me to go behind the scenes to see how these movies were made. If you're interested in unique color combos and want to learn some movie magic facts, I would highly recommend that you hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Before we dive into our first movie, let's find out what a blockbuster is. A blockbuster is a film that is extremely popular and financially successful. Prior to the 1970s, audiences would flock to the movie theaters during the winter months, while summer was actually the dead zone for the box offices. Well, that all changed in the summer of 1975 with Steven Spielberg's Jaws. The film is based on a novel by Peter Benchley of the same name. Benchley, a Harvard University alum, wrote Jaws in the early 1970s and was published in 1974. The novel was a great success and stayed at the bestsellers list for 44 weeks. Two Universal Studios producers, Richard D. Zanuck and David Brown, read the novel and wanted to make the movie. Benchley, who was still struggling as a writer, sold the adaptation rights for about $156,000 and an additional $25,000 to co-write the screenplay. He later came to regret to write such sensational stories about sharks and felt that these stories encouraged excessive fear towards the important predators in the ocean's ecosystems, and became an advocate for marine conservation later in his life. Once Universal had the adaptation rights for the novel, and Benchley would be a co-writer, they needed a director, a cast, a location, budget, and of course, the shark. Let's start with the director. First considered was veteran filmmaker John Sturges, who directed another maritime movie, The Old Man in the Sea. But it was said that the producers grew irritated with Richard of always describing the shark as a whale. In the meantime, 26-year-old Steven Spielberg was directing his first film for the producers and very much wanted the job. After Richard's departure, the producers signed Spielberg in June of 1973 to direct. Spielberg noticed the copy of the still unpublished Benchley novel at the end of the meeting with the producers. He read it and was captivated, but he did observe that the novel was similar to his TV film Duel, and Spielberg revealed later that he would repurpose the sound of the truck being destroyed in the duel as the death roar of the shark. Though initially eager to take on the project, he grew reluctant to continue with Jaws, as he didn't want to be typecast as the shark and truck director. But after Brown convinced him to move forward with Jaws, Brown said that after Jaws, you can make all the films you want. And as we all know, that was true. The film was given an estimated budget of $3.5 million and a shooting schedule of 55 days that was to be started at the beginning of May of 1974. Now that they had a director and a screenplay was underway, a location had to be decided on. Originally, the eastern shoreline of Long Island was considered, but ultimately Martha's Vineyard was chosen. This location won because the surrounding ocean had sandy bottoms that didn't drop below 35 feet until 12 miles out from the shoreline. This allowed the mechanical sharks to operate while also beyond sight of the land. Next, we need a cast. Spielberg complied with the request from the producers to cast known actors, but he wanted to stay away from big actors. He felt that casting somewhat anonymous performers would help the audience believe that this was happening to people like you and me, as a major star would sometimes bring memories along with them that might corrupt the story. The idea was to have the superstar of the movie to be the shark. The first actors cast were Lorraine Gary as Ellen Brody, Murray Hamilton as the mayor of Amity Island, and Susan Backliney, a stuntwoman turned actress, cast as Chrissy, the first victim. She knew how to swim and was willing to perform nude. Robert Duvall was offered the role as Chief Brody, but he was actually interested in the role of Quint. Charlton Heston expressed interest in the role of Brody as well, but Steven Spielberg felt that he would bring too big of a screen persona for the part of a police chief in a modest community. Ultimately, the role would go to Roy Scheider after hearing Spielberg talk about the screenplay at a party. Scheider became interested in the role of Brody. Production was about to start in just 9 days, and the role of Quint, the fisherman, and Hooper, the oceanographer, were still not cast. The producers suggested Robert Shaw for Quint, and for Hooper, Spielberg's friend George Lucas recommended Richard Dreyfuss, who Lucas had just worked with on American Graffiti. On May 2nd, 1974, production began. The producers initially wanted to train a great white shark, but quickly learned this was not possible. Instead, 3 full-size, pneumatic-powered prop sharks were made and used. The sharks were nicknamed Bruce after Spielberg's lawyer. One of the sharks was a sea sled shark. It was a full-body prop with its belly missing, and was towed with a 300-foot line. Then there were 2 platform sharks. These platform sharks were opposite models of each other, one with the left side exposed, an array of pneumatic hoses, and the other with the right side exposed. The sharks were designed by Joe Alvarez, an art director. Between 1973 and 1974, they were fabricated at Roley Harper's Motion Picture and Equipment Rental in Sun Valley, California. The sharks were trucked from California to Martha's Vineyard once they were complete. In early July, the platform used to tow the 2-sided sharks capsized as it was being lowered onto the ocean floor, and a team of divers had to retrieve it. Each shark took 14 operators to control all the moving parts. Jaws was the first major film to be shot in the ocean, which resulted in a number of shooting challenges, and a 55-day shooting schedule turned into 159 days. Also turned a $3.5 million budget into a $9 million budget. The disgruntled crew members gave the film a nickname, Flaws. Shooting at sea led to many delays, unwanted sailboats drifting into the frame, cameras getting soaked, the Orca once began to sink with actors on board, the prop sharks frequently malfunctioning owing to a series of problems including bad weather, pneumatic hoses taking on seawater, frames fracturing due to water resistance, and much more. From the first water test onward, the non-absorbent neoprene foam that made up the shark's skin soaked up liquid, causing the sharks to balloon, and the sea sled model frequently got entangled among forests of seaweed. Spielberg later calculated that during the 12-hour daily work schedule, on average only 4 hours were actually spent filming. Dreyfuss was almost imprisoned in a steel cage, and the actors frequently got seasick. The delays proved beneficial in some regard. The script was refined during production, and the unreliable mechanic sharks forced Spielberg to shoot many scenes that the shark was only hinted at. For example, for much of the shark hunt, its location is indicated by floating yellow barrels. Also, the opening had the shark devouring Chrissy, but was rewritten so that it would be shot with Chrissy being dragged and yanked by cables to simulate the attack. Spielberg also included multiple shots just using the dorsal fin. This forced restraint is widely thought to have been added to increase the film's suspense. Footage of real sharks was also used in the film. The footage was shot by Ron and Valerie Taylor in waters off of Dangerous Reef in South Australia. They used a short actor in a miniature shark cage to create the illusion of the shark being enormous. The production finally wrapped on October 6, 1974, and Spielberg thought his career was over. He had overheard rumors that no one would ever take a film that went 100 days over shooting schedule. Once the film was in post-production, the film needed a score. Spielberg turned to John Williams, who had scored one of Spielberg's previous films, The Sugarland Express. Williams said that composing the score jump-started his career and would win him his second Academy Award. He would go on to collaborate again with Spielberg on Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and shortly after, George Lucas was looking for a composer for his new movie about an epic space adventure. Spielberg returned the favor and recommended Williams for the Star Wars project, furthering his career to become one of the most popular and successful composers. Jaws arrived in 409 theaters on June 20th, 1975. In opening weekend, it brought in a record of $7 million and would gross $21.1 million in its first 10 days. Then, in just 78 days, it overtook The Godfather as the highest-grossing film in the Northern American box offices. For the next 2 years, Jaws was the highest-grossing film of all time, until Star Wars was released in May of 1977. Jaws would spawn 3 sequels to decline in critic favor and commercial performance, but still is one of the most successful franchise films. Not only did it spawn more movies, in 1990 at Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida, audiences could actually step into the movie and onto Amity Island and take a boat tour with Captain Jack with Jaws the Ride. But this was no relaxing boat ride around Amity. You will come face to face with a massive shark, and you and your skipper have to escape the jaws. But sadly, on January 2nd, 2012, Jaws the Ride was permanently closed at Universal Orlando to make room for the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. The hanging shark in front of the town square in front of the entrance of the ride can now be found in the Fisherman's Wharf area of the San Francisco section of the park. The attraction does remain open at Universal Studios Japan and Universal Studios Hollywood. Now tell me, will this make you never go into the water again? Thank you for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed this behind the scenes look into Jaws, and we'll see you for the next one.